Good morning, everybody. We're going to get this show on the road in about 30 or 40. Had lows, several lows. We had a high again in October, and then we are back now at 90,000, 89,000. We're not far off where we opened 2025. So what we're going to go through today then, it's a Monday, so it's a charts stroke data day today. We're going to have a look at the DXY very, very briefly. We're going to look at Bitcoin dominance. We're going to look at the total market cap of crypto. We're going to have a look at what's coming up. The financial calendar this year, I looked last night, there's not a lot left in the year. Most of it's going to be in January. Then we're going to have a look at when are we going to hit $250,000? When are we going to get there? Few predictions have been wrong this year. Well, most predictions have been wrong this year. So we're going to have a look at that. We're going to look at the Clarity Act. We're going to look at Solana, where Solana is. We're going to look at Knight, which is the new Cardano coin. We're going to look at XRP versus BNB. Which one should you be invested in? And then we're going to look at what Elizabeth Warren is doing with PancakeSwap, trying to tie the US government in knots. All of that in an hour. Good morning, Danny. I hope you are well. So that's what we're going to start with. But we've got a lot of X-Files, as you would expect. And we're going to get going with the charts, or the prices, should I say. Bitcoin coming in just under $90,000. Again, a few people have been saying, including myself, that we're going to get a relief rally. And we've talked about the Santa rally before on here. A couple of Fridays ago, I explained what the Santa rally was. And that's basically the last 10 days of December. The price of stocks and shares normally goes up. And I'm expecting a probably a small Santa rally in crypto as well. And maybe end the year just above $90,000. Certainly not at some of the targets that you have been given this year. Ethereum is back over $3,000. I'm happy, okay? Ethereum's not had a bad year. Bitcoin's not had a great year. Ethereum's not had a bad year. BNB back at 862. XRP's trying to get back above $2, where I think it needs to go. Solana at 126. Cardano really needs to move. Needs to get back towards 50, 60 cents. 36 cents, 37 cents is undervalued compared to a lot of the tokens we're looking at. And Chainlink at $12.65. I don't know what that coin has to do. I mean, that is one of the best projects in Web3. If we're talking about adoption, we can't talk about adoption without Chainlink. If we're talking about interoperability, we can't talk about that without talking about Chainlink. And if we're talking about regulation and regulatory requirements, we can't talk about that without Chainlink. So Chainlink ticks all the boxes. It's at $12.65. In fact, it's where? It's not even in the top 10. Gainers then over the last 24 hours, some of the coins we're going to point out. Midnight. I've been farming Midnight on another exchange, which we won't mention. And I've been farming it now for 3 or 4 days, and I'm pretty happy with its performance. I was expecting it to absolutely dump, but it's held up quite well. Hype is back over $25. Near at 156 has me in tears. I've got a bag of Near. The graph is up. Not much else. Considering Bitcoin is where it is, there's not much of a green day today. Aave is down. This was breaking news that happened just before we came live, and somebody dumped, was it $10 million worth of Aave or something along those lines, and dropped the price from about 175, 178 down to 159. So there's a reason for that to happen. Lots of pretty meh losses, 2 or 3% here, there, nothing really to talk about. Market cap back over $3 trillion. That is a positive sign. Fear and greed is still at 29. And of course, we don't have an alt season yet. If we ever get an alt season, maybe we talk about that a little bit later on. Now we're going to get on some X-Files. There's quite a lot today. I put a good number together, so we'll go through these fairly quickly. There's no particular order to the X-Files, but this is a pretty serious one, okay? So I know we like to be relaxed on this channel, but I talked to Francis at Binance yesterday about this. We know a lot of you out there are either on your own Christmas and New Year, or you don't have anybody in your circle to talk to about crypto. Both of those things can also be true at the same time. Now, we didn't do this last year because end of 2024, I had my eye operation, so I couldn't really see, couldn't really work. But the year before, in 2023, we streamed Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and New Year's Eve and New Year's Day because it's an hour of distraction, or it's an hour of you coming and asking us questions, or it's an hour of you listening to our terrible, terrible jokes. So we're going to do the same thing this year on Binance and on YouTube as well. So on December the 24th and 25th, we will stream 10 until 11. So that's an hour earlier than I'm streaming now. And then on December the 31st and January the 1st, we will also stream 10 till 11. My normal stream, that's at 11 o'clock, we will do that on the other days that we've mentioned. But those 4 days in particular, if you're feeling a bit meh and you want to come and watch an hour of crypto, those are the days, on those particular days, that we are streaming. So make sure if you just want to if you want a reason to get up early, put it that way. If there's a reason to get up early, let this be the reason. Even if we just don't talk about anything or we answer questions, we have an AMA, it doesn't matter what we do. Just turn up if you need to turn up. And we don't expect many people to turn up, but that's not the point. We will be there for the people who need us to be there. And this is a capybara. It has nothing to do with crypto, but the guy can swing a stick. And I like to start Mondays with a little bit of humour, as you know. So there is my capybara swinging his stick around. Not a care in the world. And that's what I love. Now, I might have repeated myself with some of these tweets. This was another one that only happened this morning. Now, James Easton, I don't know who he is, he shared this post basically saying, don't follow Coles who are governed by emotions. Listen to people like this. This is a chap called Jordi Visser, who's got years and years and years of experience. So I thought, I'll ask Grok, what did Jordi Visser say that Bitcoin would finish 2025 at? And lo and behold, Jordi Visser said we'd get to $200,000 by the end of December. Just like Rich Dad Poor Dad, just like Cathie Wood, just like everybody else you want to mention. Okay? We are miserable on this channel, and you know we are miserable on this channel. My original target, I think, was about 113, 114,000. And then when we broke that, I said 140,000. Now, I am not saying that because I was closer. I'm saying that because I want to tell you what my targets were for the end of the year. Not the end of the year, sorry, the all-time high. Now, I'm not casting any shade on Jordi Visser because he is clearly a far, far, far more intelligent man when it comes to finance. He predicted $200,000. You have got people throwing numbers at you which do not stack up with the state of the economies around the world and the state of the world. And Cathie Wood and Tom Lee and Michael Saylor and Rich Dad Poor Dad and everybody else are as guilty as those crazy Coles that wear sunglasses and tell you we're going to the moon, okay? There's no difference. The same way that the bears that telling you that we're going to $30,000 or $40,000, they are just as bad, okay? You can't call a bear out for saying we're going to $30,000 and not call out the Rich Dad Poor Dads of this world who are saying we've got $250,000 by the end of the year. And the reason is more people will be hurt by Rich Dad Poor Dad than by the bear, because the bear is going to be wrong and you're going to look at the bear and go, that is absolutely wrong. But you'll look at Rich Dad Poor Dad and that green-eyed envy will come across your eyes. and you'll think, yes, both are equally bad. Okay? Now, we're going to move on with the show. So, Hodl 15 Capital, I watch these guys from time to time simply because I like the content that they produce. And this is a really nice thing, especially at Christmas, to think about. If you're new to crypto, and I know a lot of you are, you don't have to buy a Bitcoin. And most people won't tell you that. You can buy $10 of Bitcoin. You can buy $100 of Bitcoin or $1,000 of Bitcoin. And you don't need to hold one whole Bitcoin. You can own 1/100th of a Bitcoin, 1,000th of a Bitcoin. And this chart is lovely, okay? If you buy $1 of Bitcoin every day, and you do that for every day of the year, if you do a limit order of $1 a day, I think even on Binance, I don't even think there's any trading fees on buying Bitcoin over there. You will accumulate Bitcoin, and over time, that Bitcoin will increase in value. And you'll look back and think, that is the best $1 I have ever invested in anything I've done. And that's something to bear in mind, okay? So this is a really nice chart, especially for people that are new. Don't look at Bitcoin and think this is really expensive. I can't afford one. I can't afford an Ethereum because that's $3,000. I know. I'll buy a Solana because it's $126. They don't work like that. They're not the same assets. They do different things. Bitcoin should be your number one position in crypto. Minimum 50% of your portfolio should be in Bitcoin. Minimum. And it will come to pass over the next years why that is true. Because nation states are not going to buy Solana. Nation states are not going out and buying Chainlink, which I like, or Hype, or Aster. They're buying Bitcoin. Think about that. Now, I don't know what happens. Have you ever seen the film, The Body Snatchers, where aliens come down and they kidnap people? And then, oh no, they don't kidnap people, they replace people. And instead of having humans walking around, you've got these aliens walking around. And they start saying things, and you're looking around going, am I the only sane person left? Because everybody else has gone crazy. Tom Lee is telling his investors that Bitcoin is going to $60,000 and then telling people on CNBC it's going to $200,000. And I'm like, but you know that report was leaked. We've now got Cathie Wood, who was my last hope. She's been replaced, okay? She's been replaced by the Matrix, to use that term. Cathie Wood expects 0% inflation by 2026 if oil prices and rents keep on falling. Okay. If rents and oil keep falling, it will go to deflation. There is not a magical zero number here, Cathie. And that's never going to happen anyway, is it? Who in their right mind would read this and go, that's going to happen, Cathie Wood? The money printer has already been turned back on. It's been on now for a couple of weeks. $8-9 billion a day. It's not a lot of money, but it's been turned back on. What does money printing do? It causes inflation. We may go to 1.5% to 2%. We may. But we're certainly not going to go to zero. And I'm afraid Cathie Wood has been replaced by an alien. And I'm breaking this here for you first. Maybe I should go and start a channel with Candice Owens. Maybe me and Candice Owens should have a channel together where we come up with the craziest conspiracy theories. And mine is Michael Saylor, Cathie Wood. They've all been replaced. Now, one person who hasn't been replaced and is actually talking sense and is much maligned, and I've called him out a few times as well, and that is Raoul Pal. And he's right. The Clarity Act, which we're going to talk about in a minute, this is going to allow the banks to access crypto. All banks access crypto, not the select few. And he's right in this case. He wasn't right that there is a direct correlation between the money supply and Bitcoin, but he is right that there is, of course, a connection between them, but they're not like for like. There is no $1 of extra in the money supply equals $1 increase in the price of Bitcoin. But there is a correlation. Of course, if you sucked all of the money out of an economy, then Bitcoin's price will fall. And if you pump ridiculous amounts of money into an economy, Bitcoin's price will go up. That is the correlation, yes. But it's not a chart that follows with a lag, because people are trying to say that they mirror each other and they don't. But I will give him his due. He is, again, another one of these people I put into the brackets of seriously intelligent people. But that doesn't mean his word is gospel either. Nobody's word is gospel, including mine. Now, do you remember me having this conversation with you probably on Friday? We sat here and I talked to you about if you're 20 or 30 years of age and you want to buy a house, and people should tell you not to buy a house because, you know, whatever it might be. And I gave you the reasons that you should look for something to outstrip inflation. That was the conversation we had on Friday. Well, this is a finance professor. After 25 years teaching finance, I realised at 58, I don't believe this for a second. If he's a finance professor, he'll have known this from university or college. If the money printer grows at 8 to 10% annually and the S&P returns 9%, it's treading water. True wealth comes from outpacing the printer. That's the Bitcoin journey. Now, that's exactly what I said on Friday. I'm not an expert. But I have been telling you for a very long time, if you strip the money supply down and you overlay that against the S&P is doing 1% a year. I think I ran some stats on this probably last year about it. There are dips, of course, where the S&P falls. There are periods where the S&P goes above, and if you take the average, it's about 1%. So the S&P doesn't grow. It grows because of money in the system, and there is, again, more of a correlation there than there is with Bitcoin. But again, you need to find an asset or multiples of assets where you can outstrip inflation. And luckily, where I've been, where the house that I live in, my house has gone up 3 times its value, 3 times the purchase price, which is what, 300%. And it's done that in 20 years. So quick math, 15% a year. So my house has outstripped inflation quite substantially over that time. But not if I look at my Bitcoin, if I'm buying Bitcoin at $3,000, and I've been doing that for, let's say 7 or 8 years, my Bitcoin is now worth 30 times what I originally started paying for it back then. And I was accumulating at 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 8,000. But let's say the average was 3. So my house has gone up a 3x in 20 years. My Bitcoin has gone up a 30x in 7 or 8 years. But, and this is the big one, it's not going to go up 30x in the next 8 years because of its size. Maybe these people are correct and maybe it goes to $1 million in the next 10 years. Well, that's a 10x in 10 years. That is far more realistic a target than saying it's going to $1 million in 2026 or 2028. So outstripping inflation, making more than 8% a year has to be your goal. And that doesn't have to come from just Bitcoin. You can own things. You can buy Tesla stock. You can buy stocks and shares. You can do all of those other things. You can even buy an index tracker of the S&P, and that will still beat inflation. And it will still beat the money supply. It will still do 1 or 2% more than inflation and than the money supply. So he's correct. What I don't agree with, though, is when he says, after 25 years, I've now decided that this is the reason. No, that's rubbish. You know, the Oracle learnt that at college. Come on. Don't be an idiot. You know, I don't like people that insult your intelligence. I find that very, very, very upsetting. A few more people. Good morning, KB. Good morning, Tariq. Good morning, Venkesh. I hope you're all doing incredibly well. Now then, there's not a lot to talk about this week. Today, nada. Tuesday, this is a little bit of my multilingual speaking here. Tuesday, GDP, maybe. There's a lot of people on crypto trying to make this a big week. This is a big week. I'm not finding it a big week. Jobless claims on Christmas Eve. Nothing on the 25th and 26th because we're closed because Santa's going to come down your chimney. Then on Monday, really not a lot. Tuesday, I mean, the minutes of the Fed's December FOMC meeting, maybe. Wednesday, again, nothing. So I think it's a fairly quiet week. So I think, and I would like to say, that, as we've been saying, this is a week of low trading volume. And I'm not expecting to see much in the way of, if we look at the 24-hour charts, $200 million, it's not really a lot. It's pretty much 50-50 between longs and shorts. So there's not a lot of trading volume. Because there's not a lot of trading volume, I'm not expecting anything from the price action. Like I said, maybe we go back above 90 to finish the year. That would be nice. If we finish 2025 at break even, I'd be happy with that. I have got a poll question of the day, which seems to have disappeared. I did have a poll question of the day, which is, give me 1 second. My poll question is, will Santa bring a $100,000 Bitcoin? 57 of you have said yes. How are we going to get to $100,000 in 3 days? I don't know. Anyway, I'm logged in today, by the way, so just so you know. Right then, the US dollar is it's fighting at its moving average. It rejected, it's bounced, it's fallen below. I mean, it's pretty much, there's nothing really happening with it, which is kind of what you would expect at this time of the year. So we're not going to focus too much on that. There's no massive swings in the DXY. It's been sitting there now since July, probably where Trump wants it. Right, market cap dominance from Bitcoin. It was on its merry little way. Again, very similar to the DXY. It's fought bravely at the bottom of its own moving average, or the bull market support band. It's now fighting at the top of its moving average, bull market support band. I still going to keep this little box here. This little box is where I think it's going to go. Let's move the little box along a little bit. I think it's going to go here, which is about 61%. Maybe if we get the Santa rally, maybe Bitcoin goes to, I don't know, 94, 95,000, then nothing else follows, then Bitcoin will go into that box. But it needs to break above that. If not, and it breaks down, which I don't see happening. I don't see anything happening in the next, well, to be honest, I don't see anything happening in the next 5 months, but I don't see a lot happening in the next week. We've got 9 days left of the year. The markets in America are going to be closed. In fact, how many days are the markets going to be left open? 23rd, 29th, 30th. I think we've got 3 or 4 more days left of the markets being open. America, UK, Japan. I don't think there's a lot left. So I don't expect anything. I think it's treading water. So again, I don't expect too much from Bitcoin dominance, but I do think it will break back above that line. It'll go back to maybe 61%, 60%, somewhere in that range. And again, we shouldn't be thinking about massive moves now. We shouldn't be thinking about massive moves at the beginning of January. The first week of January, people are still on holiday, so there's no volume again there. So when's the earliest we're actually going to see anything is probably the middle to end of January. So if we're talking the middle to end of January, we're talking about 4 weeks of nothingness, of me sitting here showing you lines doing that, which is pretty much what we're doing now. Now, this is the total market cap of crypto coming in. Look at that. $3 trillion on the nose. And if we zoom in a little bit, what we can see here is we are pretty much getting rejected at 3.18 trillion. We're finding some level of support at 2.8 trillion. I mean, we could probably just do this and say, that's the range we're in. That's the top of the range. That's the bottom of the range. And we're right at the middle of that range. And that is where we are. So we're between 2.8 and 3.2 trillion. We're smack back in bang in the middle at 3 trillion. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Where is the money going to come from in the next week that's going to break? And again, we'd need to do this. We'd need to break that line. So we'd need to do, what's that, 3.15. So we'd need to do 5%. Is that something like that? So we need to do a 5% move on Bitcoin. That takes us up towards about, what, $95,000. It's doable. And that's just on Bitcoin. You throw everything else into the equation. Ethereum would need to go up to about $3,200. It's doable. Absolutely doable. So anyway, total market cap. We're in the middle of where we are. And let's look at the total market cap without Bitcoin and Ethereum. And you'll find a very similar case to where we are in the total market cap. We are in this range. Now, this is a bigger range, by the way. This is a range that goes from December last year. We wicked up 10th of October. That was the top. As with total dominance, we're below our moving average. We've kind of got rejected at this $900 billion range. We've kind of found support at this kind of $800 billion range. If we, again, let's steal some lines to do this. So that's pretty much where we are there. And again, not expecting anything. The fireworks were October and November, okay? And now we're just sitting here and there's smoke around us and there's little bits of burnt out cardboard and we've got Christmas to look forward to with a $90,000 Bitcoin, a $3,000 Ethereum, and nobody asked Santa for any of those presents. Nobody. If I said to you in June or July, right, what do you want from Santa for Christmas? You'd have said $200,000 Bitcoin, $5,000 Ethereum, maybe $400 or $500 Solana. Santa's going to come down your chimney in 3 days' time and give you a $90,000 Bitcoin, a $3,000 Ethereum, and a $125 Sol. So are you going to be happy opening those presents on Christmas Day? Because I am absolutely not. I am absolutely not. Now, enough, I think, of the charts. I want to open with this next one. And that's because, again, researchers are good at research. But research is looking into the past to predict the future. And one of the things that I have been talking about on here for a very, very long time is, and I've asked you the question, and probably most of you won't know this, but I'm going to ask the question now. $95,000 Bitcoin sounds better, says KB. Absolutely. Mike wants us to see his beautiful beard. Do you know what? I'm going to let you into a secret. I wasn't allowed to shower after my eye operation, so I've had my hood up to basically cover my horrible hair. And now I've had a shower and I feel clean. You can see, well, I mean, there's not a lot to wash, is there? A cap full of shampoo would do that. But have I been on the wrong chart? Have I been? Oh, don't tell me I've not had this up all this time. KB told me I wasn't listening. Anyway, I've explained the charts. Just close your eyes and imagine that I am talking into your head. Okay, we're back now. So, you have seen my beard. Now, do you remember me telling you about Michael Saylor? I said to you guys, why is he buying all the Bitcoin? Why is Michael Saylor buying the Bitcoin? What is his end game? And way back when you were, let's call you bitlets, like baby Bitcoin people, bitlets. When you were bitlets, you would look with starry eyes at me and go, what is this man talking about? I've no idea what he's saying. And now, after a considerable amount of time, you're no longer bitlets. You've grown up, and now you just disagree with me, which is exactly where you need to be. I want all of you to have a different opinion to me, because that's my goal. I am not a cult leader. I want you to have your own minds. But this in front of you here is the end goal of Michael Saylor. The real breakthrough for a Bitcoin treasury company is not simply holding Bitcoin, but issuing digital credit. Bitcoin steps into its next major financial era. He is standing on stage telling people what strategy is going to be. And I've been telling you and telling you and telling you, this is his next goal. To do what he wants to do, he will need a lot of Bitcoin. Do I think 700,000 Bitcoin is plenty? I do. But for this to work, he needs more than $70 billion. He needs the price of Bitcoin to 10x. And then some, because that's 700 billion. So what's his goal? I think his goal is $1 trillion of credit. That's what I think his goal is. $1 trillion of credit requires him to hold probably 1 million Bitcoin at $1 million. And that's $1 trillion. And then this becomes a digital credit system. But even then, $1 trillion, it's probably enough. But what do I think he's going to do? I think he's going to allow you the Bitcoin holder, to take part in this. He wants to be the biggest shareholder. He wants his million Bitcoin. But then, if a few 100,000 Bitcoin come along from you and you want to earn your 4, 5%, 6% on your Bitcoin, he is probably going to give you a room in his digital property and he's going to rent it out. Now, I'm going to, in a simple way of explaining how this is going to work, Donald Trump owns hotels that you can buy a room in. When somebody rents a room in that hotel, you receive 5 or 6% APR on your hotel room from Donald Trump. So you buy one of those rooms for $200,000 a year. Sorry, for $200,000. You don't pay any service charge, you don't pay any fees, you don't pay anything because it's a hotel room. And then every year, Donald Trump sends you $10,000 and then pockets probably another $10,000. Imagine that hotel is now digital. Imagine Michael Saylor owns this digital hotel and people want to rent rooms out and pay a fee. You own that room. You will receive 60, 70, 80% of the fees from that room. Now, I don't think he's going to make it be whole coiners because at the time maybe that's a little bit too much. Maybe he's going to say you need a minimum of $100,000 or $50,000 to have one of those rooms or share one of those rooms. This is his end goal, and it's important you understand this, because even though I'm sitting here telling you that I'm scared that strategy will collapse, I'm scared there's a problem, I am, because when anybody gathers that amount of Bitcoin, if anything does happen like a Black Swan event, it's going to absolutely kick the price of Bitcoin in the nuts. And that's what I'm worried about. But for him, he doesn't care. He's buying his Bitcoin and he wants to create this digital facility, digital credit facility for everybody to borrow against. And that's his goal. Maple Finance, by the way, which obviously you'll see the logo on the screen. Maple Finance already do the same thing. You want to borrow $1 million from Maple Finance. You need to put in $3 million worth of Bitcoin as collateral. You get your $1 million and then you pay interest on that $1 million. Maybe you pay 6, 7, 8% on that. And then these blue chip institutional clients go and generate more wealth with that money, and then they will pay it back and get their Bitcoin back. That's how it works. He wants to do that on a massive $1 trillion scale. And it's really important that you understand this, which is why I'm laboring the point that you understand this, because this is the goal. And it's exciting, very exciting for me, because I've been buying Bitcoin for probably next year. I'll have been buying Bitcoin for 9 years, 8 years. I can't remember the exact date I bought it, but I think it's about 8 or 9 years ago. So think about that. Think about the fact that you can't unlock the any kind of return on your Bitcoin. This is going to be somewhere, and multiple other people will do it as well, but give you a return on your Bitcoin. Keep that in mind. Now, Galaxy's top researcher reveals when Bitcoin will hit $250,000. And again, I'm not here, I'm going to use it. I'm going to use a term now, which I've heard, and I think the kids use it, and it's called snarking, and it's where you just complain about everything. I'm not going to do that, but I like bringing these up because I like to see whether they're real or based in any element of reality, or whether they're just pulled out of thin air, like Tom Lee. Tom Lee, I don't think Tom Lee has a number when he walks into some of these interviews. I think he just sits there and goes, $110 million. And then it becomes a headline around the world. Galaxy's top researcher reveals when they think Bitcoin will hit $250,000. The head of firm-wide research at Galaxy Digital is confident that Bitcoin will hit $250,000, but this might not happen until next year. It's the 21st of December. It's the 21st of December. How is it ever going to get near $250,000 this year? It might not happen till next year. And you wonder why I think we are living in a universe of body snatchers. Alex Thorne, head of firm-wide research, has predicted that Bitcoin will eventually hit $250,000 by the end of 2027. Oh, this might not happen next year. I take it back, Alex. I apologise. At the same time, the prominent researcher has admitted it would be too challenging to predict the flagship cryptocurrency's price action in 2026. In fact, Thorne has currently set the equal odds of Bitcoin hitting 50,000 and 250,000 by the end of next year, according to Options Markets. Sensible take. Sensible take. But I would put this at 98% chance of this, and probably not even a 2% chance of this. And even then, I don't think we're going to go that low. But he's more of an expert than I am. These wide ranges reflect uncertainty about the near term. At the time of writing, broader crypto is already deep in a bear market, and Bitcoin has failed to firmly re-establish its bullish momentum, Thorne said in his social media post. Apart from the hazy macro picture, the upcoming US midterm elections will also sow uncertainty. Absolutely agree with this. 6 months ago, calls were more expensive than puts. Traders were so desperate to catch the massive rally that they paid a premium for the upside calls. Now, puts are more expensive than calls, which is normal for traditional assets. Traders are now more worried about protecting their wealth from a crash than they are excited about a rally. Now, very quickly, let's look at the facts. Bitcoin tops at the end of the year after the halving, which is November. October, we got the top, not far off, 126,000. We will bottom probably 6, 9, 12 months after this. So, if we take 6 months from October, November, December, January, February, March, April. April next year is the earliest we could bottom, if we go off the 4-year cycle. Who turns up in May? Kevin. Kevin becomes the head of the Fed in May. The month after, we could early bottom. Now, Kevin is going to be busy hanging his pictures of Donald Trump, hanging his pictures of his son playing baseball, and of his daughter doing gymnastics on the walls. So May we can probably write off. June, there's probably going to be an FOMC meeting in June where rates will be cut. So June rate cuts. Do we see immediate price action on June rate cuts? No. We'll see it in the build-up. So June for me is the bottom. May, June. I'm not going to hold myself to an exact date. May, June is the bottom. That will be, if we go off the 4-year cycle, somewhere near the previous cycle's all-time high, which was $69,000. So somewhere between $65,000 and $75,000 we will bottom. Now, what we can't take into account, because I don't really know, is the effect of the ETFs on the prices, the passive purchasing of the ETFs. As we've shown you, ever since they started, they've bought double the amount of Bitcoin that have been mined. So maybe we don't go down to 65,000. Maybe we break 70, maybe we touch 75, whatever. But around that mark will be the bottom. And then, after the midterms, which are in October, I believe, the markets normally go up because they have certainty. So that is kind of how it could all play out if we are still in the 4-year cycle. This will invalidate if we start to break back above 100, 110,000 in January, February, and then we can probably say it's gone. It's broken. Lots of things led to where we are. Of course, the government being shut down for what felt like 5 years, that has not helped. The interest rates not being cut because they were scared about tariffs, that hasn't helped. So we kind of got punched in both of the you-know-whats simultaneously. And that's kind of where we are. So I don't believe we're going to go anywhere near $250,000 next year. And if we do, we've broken the cycle. I don't believe we're going to go down as far as 50,000. I think we'll go somewhere in the region of the previous all-time high if we stick to the 4-year cycle. And the 4-year cycle, by the way, doesn't live on its own on a little island. It is tied into everything else that goes on. It's tied into the presidential campaign. It's tied into it. So don't look at things absolutely in isolation. Try and look at as much as you can. And this is what Raoul Pal was talking about. The Clarity Act explicitly leaves DeFi rules blank, risking a total retail protection collapse if negotiations fail. This is a big one. The Clarity Act will just allow banks to have crypto without any special kind of licenses and rules. This was supposed to pass this year, and it didn't. Let me just check messages to make sure I've not done anything wrong again. Oh, no, I'm here. Here I am. So this was supposed to pass this year, and it hasn't. It's going to pass in January. And again, when these things pass, they will not pass and you will see immediate price action. The one thing that I would say is the carry trade problem in Japan has been priced in, but the next rate hike in Japan isn't. The interest rate cuts of maybe 0.25% that we're going to get next is probably priced in, but the ones after that are probably not priced in my opinion. So what tends to happen is when these things pass, they're priced in, but then the effect of them will take time. Look at Bitcoin. The ETF went live, price dumped because one of the main reasons the price dumped was, of course, Grayscale dumped all of their Bitcoin. Ethereum, same thing again. The Ethereum ETF went live, price came crashing down. Bitcoin ETF went live, price came crashing down. Trump got elected, Bitcoin price came crashing down. Now, I will give KB this. They will buy the rumour, sell the news events. But the effects of them over the longer term are more positive than that price drop. And with this will happen. And it will not be felt for a considerable amount of time. But it takes time for banks to move. They're not in crypto. They're slow. They're men that travel halfway across America to have a meeting and then agree on a meeting in a month's time. That's how slow they are. You're used to seeing something happen on a Monday, top on a Tuesday, and be 99% down on a Wednesday. That's not how these people work. They're like the Ents. They're like those trees in Lord of the Rings that take 4 years to come up with a decision. That's what these people are like. They're just old men. And by the way, there's no female Ents. Just want to point that one out there. Same way, there are no females in the higher echelons of the banking industry. They're just old men that take the time. They think in decades, not in minutes. A January markup isn't finishing anything. It's the opening move in a multi-year pipeline where the most contested questions haven't been resolved and statutory language still sits in brackets. The real work won't begin until the bill clears a Senate floor vote, conference negotiations and a presidential signature. So it passed in July alongside the Genius stablecoin bill, which was bigger than I gave it credit for at the time. It now sits in the Senate Banking Committee with two separate drafts must be merged before any markup can occur. Those drafts still have bracketed definitions of what counts as a security and how much DeFi infrastructure falls within the regulatory parameter. They also leave open how intrusive reporting requirements become for trading venues. Now, another thing I said on Friday last week, I expect DeFi to be available within Binance by the end of next year. So you will be able to access the DeFi products through Binance at the end of next year. I don't know that. Binance hasn't told me anything. It's absolute sense though. Why do you have this disconnect between retail, degens and exchanges? An exchange should be all things to all men, especially as Binance is likely to become a bank. We went through the IPO strategy and that I think they'll go through. I think there'll be a DeFi option. You've seen it a little bit with Binance Alpha. Yes, you've seen it a little bit with their Web3 wallet. But I think they're just going to take it that one step further. Others are starting to do it. I think it's the next natural step. But this kind of stuff brings uncertainty to the likes of Binance, who've still got PTSD from Gary Gensler, may I add. So I think we're going to see more of a convergence of banking, Binance, DeFi. I think it's all going to come together. And listen, when Michael Saylor launches his strategy hotel, Binance are going to be in there. Absolutely, of course they are. So, let's not make no bones about this. The big people are playing the long game. And as long as you know what that long game is, you can sleep well at night. I've not panicked. 2017 was my worst all-time high for me, because I didn't really understand what was going on. I knew Bitcoin had a future. I knew crypto was brilliant. I could understand all of the banking aspects and stuff like that. But that killed me. That 2017 crash, that killed me. 2021 was disappointment. 2021 was, I can't believe we didn't keep going. I can't believe it. This one, I've kind of shrugged my shoulders. No euphoria. With no euphoria. I did not sit here with my sell cap on for Tariq. It just didn't happen. And because it didn't go massively to the upside, I don't believe it's going to come massively to the downside either. So this has been the least worrisome bull run bear market I think I've been in. I think. By a long way. Solana braces for quantum computing threats with new signature deployment. We kind of covered this about Aptos last week. Solana, we mentioned we're going to pass something. This is the fallout from that. So there's some continuation about this. I am going to keep covering this stuff because I think you need to have an argument. Not a physical argument. I mean, you need to have a case for defending crypto against these people. As I keep saying, who do you think is more secure, Bitcoin or your local bank? Which one has the best security? Okay, which one is likely to be attacked by quantum computing from North Korea? Is it likely to be Bitcoin, or is it likely to be a nation state? It's likely to be a nation state. So Bitcoin is not the number one priority, even when we do get to that stage, but still they need to prepare for this kind of stuff because it's the wallets that are the problem, not necessarily the chain. So according to an official announcement, the Solana Foundation has taken the first step towards quantum proofing the Solana blockchain by signing a partnership with Project 11, a Google-led research initiative. Per the joint statement, Project 11 has conducted a full threat assessment to measure how future quantum computing innovation could adversely affect Solana. The assessment measured the effects on Solana's core infrastructure, validated security, user wallets, charting a tentative solution for the blockchain. They're going to prototype a functioning Solana testnet and deploy a functioning post-quantum signature system. Efforts like Project 11's reflect early concrete steps to strengthen the network and stay at the forefront, ensuring Solana's resiliency long-term, said Matt Sorg. Again, people that try and worry you about this kind of stuff are the same kind of people that told you that your brain would explode if you got on a train that went faster than 30 miles an hour, or told you that telephony companies would collapse under the weight of email. None of those things came to pass, and no major blockchain is going to be hacked by quantum computing. None. And if you think that some of the brightest minds in programming, which work on Bitcoin and Solana and Ethereum, if you think they can't spend 3, 6, 12 months working together on the different Discord channels or in the different Reddit groups or whatever substacks that they talk to each other on, they share this information. They are like, think of programmers like digital scientists. They share knowledge between each other, not trade secrets, but they share that knowledge. If somebody comes up with a really cool way of doing something, a routine, they will share that information and they put it up on the GitHub and everybody can copy it. They're going to sort this out. And I'm only covering it because I understand the whatabouteries that exist. And that's my term for them now. I'm not going to call them woke. I'm going to call them whatabouteries because it's got a bigger umbrella. The whatabouteries can go and walk off a very short plank and take a very long walk off it. Charles Hoskinson tips Knight to become the first true fourth generation cryptocurrency. Here's why. And this is the one I was farming. I don't think I've got an airdrop. I know I got a message from Packer about this. I don't think I got an airdrop of Knight. I need to go and check, but I don't think I've got one. And that's a problem because I wanted it. So I'm farming it at the minute. I don't think I've got that much of it. I think I've farmed about $50 or $60, something like that. But I'm still farming it. I'm probably going to still continue to farm it. Not because I know a great deal about it, but because it's part of the new Cardano ecosystem. I just want to be involved a little bit. So when Midnight launched, I think it's done about $4 or $5 billion worth of trading over the weekend or something like that, some crazy numbers. So he's tipped it to become the first true fourth generation crypto. Since its launch, Knight has achieved listing on a plethora of exchanges, while retail interest is at an all-time high for the privacy-focused blockchain. Charles has hailed Midnight's launch as an incredible success following a spike in retail and interest. This is the one that they're putting is it the medical? I think the medical records are being put on tonight. And again, people can bash Cardano as much as they want. And of all of the projects that I've got conviction in, obviously I've got conviction in Bitcoin and Ethereum, I just can't back against Cardano because they're doing proper real world things. And the chain is being involved at a state level. You know, Charles has been to Africa, he's been to Asia, he's been to the White House in America. Cardano, you will fade it because it's not sexy. And I guarantee you could name 5 sexier chains than Cardano. Even Kronos chain is far sexier than Cardano. But Cardano is doing real world things. And sometimes, as I keep saying, some things in life you'll make money out of that are boring. You know, recycling, it's boring. Packaging is boring. Makes a lot of money. Cardano is likely to make a lot of money. Now, it's amazing how well the ecosystem is developing and holding up, said Hoskinson. It's on its way to be the first true fourth generation of cryptocurrency and bring in a new era to our industry. Dave, after the launch, I can't mention any of these names, but again, keep an eye on it. I think it's got really good tech. I think it's really worth looking at. I think there's 2 as well. Isn't there 2 additional tokens? There's Knight and there's another one. Can't remember what the one's called either. And then you've got Cardano. So again, keep an eye on it. I don't have any vested interest in Cardano. I hold ADA, but I don't have any. I don't really make videos about Cardano, just like the project. Now, XRP versus BNB unexpectedly becomes the tightest race crypto has right now, apparently. XRP is pressing BNB for the top 3 non-stable coin slot right now, with market caps sitting split by 1.35 billion. Is that true? Is that true? Let's have a look. I didn't realise they were that close. They are that close. Now, I know BNB flipped XRP, didn't it? Because BNB at one point was competing with Solana back at about 75 billion. So it's BNB that's made the move, overtaken XRP, and I didn't realise they were that close. They are within 2.7 billion of each other now. Very, very impressive move, that. And not one I would have predicted either. So BNB and XRP just turned the top 3 race into a daily battle on CoinMarketCap, sitting about 1.35. It's now 2.7 because one's gone slightly up and one's come slightly down. And 1% move can flip the ranking in hours, with communities of both watching every tick. I don't think anybody's watching these ticks, are they? Who's watching these ticks? Are you? Did you even know they were that close to each other? Because I didn't. And I look at the charts every day, or look at the prices every day. The top 3 fight is not about Bitcoin or Ethereum. It's not even about the stable coin sitting third. It's the race for third. BNB is at 117. XRP is at 116. They've now changed a little bit since then. One solid session can swap the order. Again, it's nice to keep an eye on that. What makes it messy is the split between the value and activity. XRP is trading near 192, with 2.41 billion trading volume. BNB is at 854 with 1.4 billion in trading volume. So BNB's got less trading volume than XRP. Interesting. Listen, it's a bit of fun to watch. I wouldn't hold anything in it. I also would ignore the price. The price is irrelevant because we can go over here and we can look at the circulating supply. The circulating supply of BNB is 137 million. The circulating supply currently of XRP is 60.57 billion. Okay, so price is irrelevant. Don't buy BNB, or sorry, don't buy XRP because you think it can do multiples to overtake the price of BNB. Always look at the circulating supply whenever you look at projects. The argument that we were talking about the other week was, of course, Solana. At the same market cap 4 years ago, with half the circulating supply, had a $250 Solana. But in the last 4 or 5 years, the circulating supply of Solana has increased. I think there's a 1 billion, is it 1 billion XRP a month is being unlocked? So again, XRP, if we look at XRP very, very quickly, you will see that the total supply is a lot higher than the circulating supply as well. So that those things need to take into account. So the max supply is 100 billion. And we've got, what did I just say? 60 billion in circulation. 60 billion in circulation. So there's 40 billion XRP to come out of the box. Whereas BNB is heading in the opposite direction. BNB is shrinking every 3 months. So again, those things make a difference. Over time, probably you're going to see the likes of, or the price of XRP. You're probably going to see that struggle. Whereas BNB's price, you know, BNB could be at $10,000 a coin very, very soon. Probably in the next 4, 5, 6 years, because of the burn, because the circulating supply is so low. You can't really earn more than 0.5% on BNB if you look at the emissions. So BNB for me is going to go up in value over time because they're just burning so much of it. Now the last one, and I'm going to have to go on time because I have a meeting at 12:15. So I'm going to have to run PDQ, which is why I'm dressed. I'm going to have to run to this meeting, so we'll keep this one quick. Elizabeth Warren is using PancakeSwap to force Trump's regulators into a conflict trap they can't escape. When the Senate can't move a crypto bill, Warren moves paper, and this time she's asking who polices DeFi when Trump is in the trade. Again, now, I'm going to be, again, one of these people who told you so. I'm going to be a told you so-un. I said that World Liberty Financial was going to be Donald Trump's Achilles heel. And I said that before he was elected. And the reason is he is too close to World Liberty Financial. Way too close. And yes, his sons run it, but we all know Trump is massively involved. And it's value extraction. We all know that as well. I've been talking about that now for a year and a bit, ever since World Liberty Financial launched, which is why I said don't back against it, because I think it's going to do really well. National security risk is a little bit extreme. Conflict of interest, yes, not national security risk. The hook she chose is PancakeSwap, a DeFi venue that in Warren's telling sits at an uncomfortable intersection of no account needed trading and the kind of money that can end up on sanctions slides. In the letter, she pointed out that PancakeSwap has been used to launder cybercrime proceeds tied to North Korea. She then turned the compliance argument into Washington fight, saying PancakeSwap has been drumming up interest in coins tied to the Trump family's main crypto company, World Liberty Financial, and citing a Wall Street Journal report claiming that over 90% of trades in USD1 took place on PancakeSwap. The cleanest way to read the letter is to ignore the rhetoric and look at the 3 questions at the end. She asked the Treasury and the DOJ to describe national security risks tied to DEXs and spell out gaps in statutory and regulatory authority that should be closed. She wants a list of actions the agencies will take to prevent conflicts of interest and insulate enforcement and national security decisions from crypto-related conflicts. She's basically, I'm not going to go through all of this, it's very, very long. But basically, DEXs, decentralized exchanges, they are usable without anybody knowing who you are. That is correct. Can it be used by people with ties to bad actors? Yes, they can. But she forgets one thing, and that is the likes of Binance. They work with the police, the financial police as well. They also work with other exchanges, which we can't mention names of. But Binance works with other exchanges, works with finance people, all that kind of stuff. The industry is making great strides because it's all well and good funds being taken by some of these bad actors, but they have to get these funds out, and a lot of the time the majority of the funds don't make it out of the system. But North Korea is the kind of the outlier. They run their entire cyber hacking system and their military. They run it off the proceeds of crime. So they are the big ones. The problem is this goes further than PancakeSwap. This lies at the heart of crypto. And that question is, should you or anybody else be allowed to transact without anybody knowing who you are? And the answer has to be yes. It has to exist. My question then should be, should we close down and push out as many opportunities and possibilities for those people who commit crime to be closed down? And my answer to that question would also be yes. There is no black and white. It is grey. You should be allowed to transact in DeFi without anybody asking questions. But we should also police ourselves, as Binance does, as everybody else does. We should also police ourselves to limit the amount of crime. We will never be able to stop it. Elizabeth Warren is a little bit like the pot calling the kettle black. What is the number one asset used in the world for crime? It's the dollar. Okay? The dollar is used in the Middle East. The dollar is used in Africa. The dollar is used in North Korea. The dollar is the number one asset used by criminals. Cash is the number one asset used by criminals. So, she's right and she's wrong. And I think it's far more nuanced than sitting there and saying Donald Trump shouldn't be allowed to sell his own tokens. That's what I would say. Now, it's 12:01. I have to dash. I think I'm back tomorrow. Let me check my Excel. I'm trying to keep on top of keeping to the calendar of events that we have got. And by the way, if you haven't done, follow us, okay? Because we're streaming all over Christmas. So today is Monday. We've got a Monday show. Now, apparently, according to this, tomorrow we have the morning show and we have a Christmas quiz. I have not planned a Christmas quiz. I have no idea what's going to happen. So, who knows? But tomorrow I'm streaming, and that is Tuesday the 23rd. Now, the 24th and 25th, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, we're streaming at an earlier hour. So, take care, everybody. Thank you, Mags. Thank you, KB. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you for reminding me I was on full screen and you didn't see any of the charts. Yeah. Anyway, I've got to go. Merry Christmas. See you all tomorrow. Ciao.